Hi, it's me, Vicky. Just to tell you straight away, this video is a true crime video. So if you like the videos on learning English or learning Spanish and you're not interested in this video, it's time to click out now. So I just thought I'd tell you that before you start watching thinking, why is she not saying about English or Spanish? So yes, I'm making this video because, well, it's a bit of a follow-on, if you like, from the case of Sarah Everard in the UK, because as we know, her murderer has just been sentenced to a full life tariff, and so he should. He's like a double deviant, isn't he? Because he's actually a serving police officer. Just makes everything feel worse, doesn't it? But as if it couldn't be, as if it could be any worse. But you know, the fact that she was abducted and murdered, raped and murdered by, you know, the very person, if you like, that we feel that we should trust, the police, just makes it even worse. But anyway, so the reason, as I say, it's because this is another case. Well, it's a current case. It's in America. If you're watching from America, obviously you will know about it. There's no doubt about it. I doubt if there's anyone in America who hasn't heard about it. And even all over the world. In the UK, a lot of people have heard of it too. And this is the murder of Gabby Petito. And first of all, before I go any further, I'd just like you to look at these photos and tell me what you think. What do you see in these photos? Okay, so young couple, are they in love? Are they happy? Are they living their best life? This is the whole problem with social media, isn't it? You know, what we see on social media is not always representative of what's really going on in real life. And anyone looking at those photos would think that this is a young, attractive couple, madly in love, having a great time, living their best life. Well, the truth is not that, as we'll find out. So if you don't know about this case, Gabby Petito is 22 years old. The guy on the photos is her fiance, Brian Laundrie. And yeah, they've been together since they were at high school. They got engaged, I think it was earlier this year. They lived together in his parents' house. And they planned this trip. This was they planned to make a trip. They left on a trip actually on July the 2nd this year to make a 4-month cross-country trip. I don't know if you know, but very popular amongst young people these days is this van life experience where people live in a van for, you know, go travelling in a van, sleep in the van, etc. Experience. It's sort of like wild camping, I suppose. Park up in national parks, etc., and see the sights. And Gabby, well, they both had Instagram accounts and a YouTube account where they were updating their subscribers, fans, followers constantly, and they had a lot of followers. I mean, you know, it wasn't just like 20 people, there were thousands of people that were interested in what they were doing, and they were regular updates of where they were and what they were doing. So yeah, this is van life, very popular, especially I think in America, because of course America, you know, it's a big country to explore, isn't it? So you know, there's lots of national parks, lots of sites to see. I mean, same in the UK there are, but I think in America it's just so much more vast, isn't it? So yeah, July the 2nd, they left on this trip. They were she was posting regularly, he was posting regularly. Looked like they're having a fantastic time. The first sort of signs, if you like, of any problems was August the 9th, when a 911 call came in from a guy who reported a domestic incident, said he had seen a man slapping a woman. You know, they were having an argument in the street or, you know, in public. And he'd seen the man slapping the woman, and they'd driven off in this van, this white van, and he must have given the actual number plate to the police, I suppose. Because anyway, to cut a long story short, they did find the van. They came across the van, they pulled the van over to find Gabby Petito in tears, more or less hysterical actually, and there is video because there's body cam footage of this whole interview that the police had with the couple and how they dealt with it, which I'll give my thoughts on that later. I know it's difficult with domestic disputes, but you know, you watch the video and that girl is hysterical, really, really upset, and the guy is very calm, very trying to sort of play it down, etc. Anyway, I'm going to try and upload the actual footage or some of it. I may not be able to do that yet. I haven't quite worked out how to do that, but if I can't, the actual footage will be linked in the description box. There are YouTube videos where you can watch the whole footage or clips of the footage. But it basically, if I explain what happened, so yeah, Gabby was crying, hysterical. Brian was very, very calm. Now, many people, there's been a bit of an outcry in the US because they're saying that the only reason everybody's so interested in this case is this missing white woman syndrome. It's because Gabby was white and she was blonde. If it would have been a black woman, nobody would be really so interested in it. And I don't agree with that in this case. The reason this case has caused so much attention is because there's so much video footage of everything. Well, first of all, their own Instagram accounts, YouTube. Then you've got the body cam, which is, you know, in full public domain. There is lots of video, and I think this is what's captured people's imagination. And of course, the whole van life experience, which is so popular at the moment. So I don't think that's true of why it's received so much attention. What I do think is true, though, is if Brian Laundrie would have been a black man who had been pulled over with a sobbing, hysterical woman next to him who was, well, you'll see she's trying to defend him, she immediately takes the blame on herself, and he deflects the blame onto her as well. If he would have been black, that wouldn't have happened. That I do believe in. I think he literally got away with murder, as it turns out, or we should not supposed to say that because he hasn't been found guilty of it, but you tell me what you think. Yeah, if he would have been black, I don't think that would have happened. Because what did happen was the police, in the end, decided that she was the aggressor, he was the victim of domestic violence. But because neither of the pair wanted to, the other one to get into trouble, what they decided to do was separate them for the night. And it is so irritating, parts of the video when you watch it, because the thing that irritated me the most was the police assume that that van was Brian's van and not Gabby's. That was Gabby's van. There's one point when they actually say to him, oh, well, do you trust her with your vehicle? Is she okay with driving? It was so patronising. It was her van, not his van. And, you know, they just assume that. They never run the plates. They never ask whose van is it. They just assume that Brian is the owner of the van. And in fact, Gabby is the owner of the van. It is her van. It's been customised and they've worked on it together. And I'm sure they did a lot of it together. But at the end of the day, the van belongs to her. The van is registered in her name. And the police never even explore that possibility. So anyway, the decision's made to separate them for the night. I think Gabby went to a motel, or I'm not sure of the detail. It'd be easy to research if you want to find out exactly what they did. They had to separate that night. So apparently this is something that they do quite often now with domestic violence disputes in America. Just cool the situation down. It seems fair enough to me, logical. Separate them for the night, and then the next day everything looks different, don't they? Doesn't it? Another thing I think hasn't been explored by people. I felt watching Gabby that there may have been some, not only from her, but I mean, he was very calm. He was almost icily calm, really. When you think, you've got a sobbing woman next to you in the van, then so obviously something has happened. Unless the police decided she'd had some sort of psychotic episode. I don't know. They just didn't get this. To me, it just seemed quite strange. He was weirdly calm, if you like, because even if it was, you'd be a little bit upset, wouldn't you, that your girlfriend was so upset, even if it was totally her fault. There'd be something, I don't know. But yeah, I wonder if there wasn't some marijuana smoked along the way, because I don't care what anyone says about marijuana. I know from what I've actually seen in other people, it can cause, especially in young people, a lot of psychosis, a lot of paranoia, a lot of, not in the moment of smoking it, but the moment afterwards. And watching Gabby, I did sort of feel that maybe there was a little bit of that involved. I don't know, or drinking, or, at the end of the day, these things, they're all not good as far as domestic harmony is concerned. But basically, yeah, in the end, it was decided that she was the aggressor. They were made to go their separate ways, if you like, for one night, but then that was it. Sort of, that was the last thing the police wanted to know about it. So it's very sad. If you do watch the webcam footage, it is actually quite difficult to watch because she's so upset. And I just feel for the parents, because they're watching that and they must feel like grabbing her and just taking her out of it, because that was the point when Gabby could have been saved, I think. Anyway, so that was on August the 9th. On August the 23rd, 24th, can't be remembered exactly by the mother, was the last FaceTime call that she had with her daughter. She had a FaceTime call, so she knows Gabby was okay at that point on August the 23rd or 24th. And Gabby told her they were going to Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming, which apparently is a huge nature reserve, one of the lovely nature parks to be seen. And they were going there. That was the last FaceTime, the last time she actually saw Gabby's face, and she knows that that was Gabby that she spoke to. Oh, right. What have I done with the next thing? And after that, all the parents ever received were a couple of more texts, which the mother said was what she would call strange texts. There was one, just a message just saying no service in Yosemite Park, a national park or something like that, which, no kisses, no. And then you think, well, if there was no service, how did manage to send that message? And why was it so short and succinct? Then there was one other message sent, which again the mother thought was strange, because Gabby referred to her grandfather as Stan. She said, "Can you call Stan? Stan keeps calling me," something along those lines. "I'm worried about Stan." And apparently Gabby never called her grandfather Stan. She called him Grandpa, or, so it did strike the mother strange at the time, but she had no reason yet to really worry. Okay, she knew that she would be going to places where there would be not much service, mobiles, internet coverage, etc. Okay, so on September the 1st, so let's see, so August the 9th was the call reporting the domestic incident. And then on September the 1st, Brian Laundrie returned home to his parents' house alone in Gabby's van. Now, bearing in mind that before they left in July, they left from there. She lived there. Gabby lived with Brian at his house with his parents. So on September the 1st, he returned. No Gabby, driving her van. Now, this has led that they said nothing. Nobody reported Gabby missing. They just carried on as normal. No one even knew that Gabby hadn't returned with him. And in fact, Gabby's family didn't know that he had actually returned for a while. So, yeah, so you imagine. I have a son. Any of us with sons, you want to protect your son, of course you do. But your son is living in your house with his girlfriend. He goes off on a trip. He comes back on his own, driving her van, and you don't say, where's Gabby? What's happened to Gabby? You don't report her missing. I mean, please. So this has led to the media now referring to, because they're called the Laundrie is their surname, their nickname now is the Dirty Laundries. And there's a lot more reasons for this as well. So I don't feel bad repeating it because I think it's just terrible, terrible what they've done. But anyway, so no one reported her missing. So 10 days later, on September the 11th, Gabby's family reported her missing. So obviously they've been trying to get in touch. They've been speaking to the Laundries, the Dirty Laundries. The father had phoned the police. I think it might have been the stepfather had phoned the police and reported them and said, look, you need to go and speak to these people because they're not telling us what's happened to our daughter. So there'd been various, and eventually on September the 11th, it was Gabby's family that reported her missing. So bear in mind that for 10 days, Brian had been with his parents without Gabby and nobody had reported her missing. Nobody. Then on September the 17th, the Dirty Laundries rang the police and said, so by then Gabby's been reported missing and they're trying to interview Brian. The Brian and his family reserved their right to remain silent, which is a right that they have, and said nothing to help the police. Nothing. I mean, I just can't quite, I don't really know how they're allowed to do that, but I suppose that's your right. But 10 days, nothing. And then on it was 6 days after she'd been reported missing, nothing, no appeals, no, Brian wouldn't even say where he had last seen her. When had he last seen her? September the 17th, the Dirty Laundries rang the police and reported Brian missing. So now Brian's missing. They said that on September the 14th, he had gone hiking at the Carlton Reserve, which is another one of these great big national parks. So yeah, your girlfriend's missing. You don't know what's happened to her. Let's go hiking. Yeah. Anyway, that's what he did. According to them, he went off hiking on September the 14th, and now it was September the 17th, and he hadn't come back yet, and they were worried about him. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? I mean, it's almost funny if it wasn't so tragic. Anyway, his car was there at the Carlton Reserve. So when the police went to the Carlton Reserve, they found his car and a big search started looking for Brian. So I think there was a lot of assumption that maybe he'd committed suicide. Or, nobody really knew, but I think that was perhaps the assumption at the time. So the police started searching the Carlton Reserve, which apparently is so difficult. It's cost thousands and thousands of dollars, these searches, because there's swamps, there's alligators, that it's a very dangerous terrain. But Brian, bear in mind, Brian was a minimalist. You know, a lot of young people these days, they're that's what the whole van life concept is, you know, living as basic as possible. And he boasted that he could survive, you know, he was a survivor, he could survive out in the wilds for a month or whatever, you know. He was well, the more you look into Brian, you'll see, if you look into him, he's not a nice person, but anyway, because he's quite hypocritical. So he's a minimalist in one way, but you can see he's got all the nice clothes and the this, that, and the other. He's not really going without anything. But anyway, there you go. So he's disappeared. So he's been missing since. So they've waited 3 days before they've reported him missing. I mean, you know, it just stinks, doesn't it? It absolutely stinks. And so we're at the point now, the police are searching. Now, in the meantime, a very interesting. So, I think this story tells us how social media is a bad thing in some ways, but it can be a very good thing as well. Because another couple who were also into the van life experience and were on a van life trip, who were also from Florida, which is where they come from, Gabby and Brian, were in the Grand Tetron Park, which was the last place that Gabby had said to her mum on that FaceTime call that they were going to. And they were travelling there, and they had a GoPro on the front of their vehicle. And as they were travelling along one of the lanes, they saw a white van in the distance. And what intrigued them was it had a Florida plate. Now, this is something that, you know, had just got lost in all their other footage of the trip that they'd made. They'd not even thought about it until suddenly this was coming out on the media and everything, that Gabby had gone missing and police released photos of her van, etc. And they suddenly, it was like, oh, remember that white van that we saw when we were in the Grand Tetron National Park? So they got their GoPro footage, went through it, and there it was. And it was Gabby's van. And it's, again, I'll put the link, if I can't manage to actually upload it, I will put the link to show how this video happens. And you see it as the van is coming up, as their vehicle is coming up, you can see the van in the distance on like a lane, and it's pulled over to one side. And some people think that the van door was open as they first saw it, and as they approached, the van door closes. It's very spooky to watch, very, very spooky to watch, because whatever, something was going on there. Gabby's flip-flops were on the floor outside the van as well, on the floor. So it's really quite eerie. So as they go past, they just video it. Well, you know, they're not specifically videoing it, except just because it's got a Florida plate. And she said, if we would have seen someone, we would have stopped and said, hi, we're from Florida as well, you know, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they didn't see anyone. They thought they'd seen the door closing as they approached, but they can't be sure of that. And off they went, and they forgot all about it until they saw all this news coverage. And lo and behold, they gave the footage to the police. The police pinpointed the spot where it had happened and sent out a search party and dogs, and they found Gabby. They found her body, unfortunately, very close by to where that van had been filmed. So if they had not filmed, I mean, you know, imagine how big these nature reserves, etc. are. Would they have ever found her? I mean, could they have searched the whole, or how long would it have taken, even if they, I'm sure they'd started searching it, but where do you start? It's like looking for a needle in a haystack, isn't it? And, you know, it's expensive. The body in the meantime is decomposing, so it's difficult then to tell, you know, manner of death, time of death, or, you know, all the details, the forensic details that you might need, the DNA, etc. So it was like a godsend, really. I mean, not a godsend for Gabby's parents, obviously, and family, because unfortunately their worst nightmare had come true. Gabby had been murdered. And that was released as well a couple of days later, that the autopsy report confirmed that it was homicide. So, where was Brian? Now, the date of them seeing the van was before Brian had returned home to his parents. So, he was in possession of the van. Anyway, we don't know, we're supposed to think someone is innocent till proven guilty, but this, you just sort of look at this case and you just think, oh my God. So yeah, on the 21st of September, it was declared that there were the remains of Gabby and it was homicide. And on September the 23rd, the FBI took over the case from the police. So this now went from being a police search for Brian to an FBI search, in other words, nationwide, I suppose. And an arrest warrant, an FBI arrest warrant was issued for Brian's arrest. Not for murder, but for credit card fraud. So, details haven't been released, but it seems pretty obvious to most people that in this meantime, Brian had used Gabby's debit card to buy things. Nice. Oh, he's such a lovely guy. What a guy. My goodness. I can't hardly bear to look at his photo now and that revolting 6 mile pretending to be a nice person. So after he's murdered her in whatever, probably murdered her in whatever happened. I mean, things happen, I suppose. But then after that, he's disposed of her body, pretending nothing's happened. And not only that, used her debit card. So nice guy. So no wonder they're being called the dirty laundries. Now, as I make this video, that is the story so far. Brian still hasn't been found. There's lots of emerging stories coming. It's becoming apparent now that his family has lied from start to finish, because his sister Cassie, in the first instance, said she hadn't seen Brian. Since he went off on this trip with Gabby. But it's becoming quite apparent now. I think people forget about CCTV and, once the FBI or the police get an idea of where somebody's been and they start checking out, it may take time to check through all the CCTV footage, car cams, this, that and the other. And of course, that helped to catch Sarah Everard's murderer that people had on these GoPro things that people have on their cars. He was videoed talking to Sarah, arresting Sarah or falsely arresting Sarah. So yeah, these things, they're like this double-edged, you think, oh, our privacy is being interrupted. But when something happens and you want someone to be caught, you're glad of these things. So there's been a lot of other reports of how can I put it, the sightings of the sister with the brother. So after she said that she hasn't seen the brother, so it's all very suspicious, and that's why they're being called the dirty laundries, because at the end of the day, if you've got nothing to hide, why lie, first of all? And if he killed her and it was an accident of it, why go through all this? It's just why put the family especially through it? And I have to say that Gabby's family are just incredible. They are incredible. I don't think many families would be as resilient as they've been, and as polite as they've been about the dirty laundries, if you like, because you'd be pretty angry, wouldn't you, if your daughter had gone missing and the family of the person who was suspected of murdering them was just lying and covering up and not speaking to the police. And not only that, the family that said she was like a daughter to them, Cassie, Brian's sister, said she was a sister to me. So that's like, it's even worse. They lived together in the parents' home. It wasn't like she was just she was some girl that they didn't know very well even. They'd been together since they were at high school. you know, it wasn't someone he'd met 3 weeks ago. I'm not saying that's even right. Of course it isn't, but it's worse when it's somebody that you've known so long. So I just don't understand it. But I hope I'm never in a position where I have to make that decision. But I don't think I would make the decision they've made. But anyway. Now, just another couple of interesting things. When this case is finally resolved, I will probably do an update, and if you're interested, you'll watch it. Maybe you're not interested, but I think you wouldn't still be watching now if you weren't interested. Another interesting thing that happened around the same time, and a tragic thing, was that very close to where Brian is thought to have spent that night that the police separated the couple, you know, for a night to sort of cool down after the domestic incident. There was another murder. 2 women were murdered who had just got married, and they were camping, and they were shot. Now, some people say, no, this has got nothing to do with that particular murder. It's just a coincidence that it happened in exactly the same area on that night or day that Brian and Gabby had been separated, or, you know, now maybe it is, but I always remember, I mean, I watch a lot of true crime, as I'm sure you can imagine, and I always remember, well, not only one policeman, I've seen so many say the same thing. They don't believe in coincidences, that after working in the police for a certain length of time, they don't believe in coincidences. So I'm sort of taking that thing, that same outlook and thinking, well, I'm not going to believe in coincidences. It seems like quite a big coincidence. Because, you know, murder, although sometimes you know, when you watch the news, you think, oh my God, it's happening all the time. It is actually rare. It's just obviously the world's a big place, and these days we get to hear of things that happen in, you know, when I was a kid, you would never have heard of something like this that was happening, you know, so far away in America or whatever. But because the world is such a smaller place, now we do get to hear about lots, so you sometimes think it's happening all the time, which of course it isn't. So the coincidence of it happening at the same time, so close together, is perhaps too much of a coincidence. Anyway, these are the sort of things that will come out with time as things come to light. Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to, I think I also find it quite useful to do that and to read it. It helps me put my sort of thoughts in order about this whole thing. It is a case that is fascinating the world, and as I say, I don't think it's just because Gabby was a white blonde girl. I think it's because of all the video footage. You know, people, it's like people almost feel, I think, feel like, same with Sarah Everard, when you get all this video footage and these pictures, you feel like it's somebody, you know it, you feel it personally. And the thought of Brian not being caught, and the dirty laundries, and and something else I wanted to say, I don't know if you know about Dog the Bounty Hunter, who he has been on British TV, you know, the American TV series. He is heavily involved in it. And he's actually found a few clues for the police. He went to a campsite. Oh, because then in the midst of everything, after Brian had arrived home without Gabby, and before he went missing 10 days later or whatever, him and his parents went on a camping trip to a campsite. They're a 23-year-old going off in a caravan with his parents to a camping site. It just seems bizarre. Anyway, they did. And Dog the Bounty Hunter found this out, and he went there, found out, and now the police are looking at CCTV of that as well. And that is why they think that now the sisters, the lawyer for the Laundrie family, has come out and said when the sister said she hadn't seen Brian, she misinterpreted the reporter's question, or she got confused. So this seems that on this footage, it's going to show that Cassie actually was there as well. So the lawyer is like saying first that she had seen him, rather than letting the CCTV footage come out and then having to admit she lied in the first place. So it's a case that gets curiouser and curiouser. Okay, so yeah, let's hope Brian's found soon and the dirty laundries get held to account in one way or another. Who knows what they knew? They must know something. I mean, if your son, as I say, your son turns up without his fiancée, who lives in your house in her van, and you're going to be asking some questions, aren't you? So we will see what happens. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye. Okay, so that's it for this video. Eso es todo para este video. Thank you for being here with me to learn English or Spanish. I appreciate it. So gracias por estar aquí conmigo para aprender inglés o español. Te lo agradezco mucho. Why not stay a little while with me and keep me company? Watch a few more videos to learn Spanish or English. If you feel like it, of course. Quédate conmigo un rato para aprender inglés o español, para darme compañía, si te apetece, claro. And finally, as always, finalmente, como siempre, que tu Dios vaya contigo, may your God go with you, and I will see you real soon in the next video. Y te veo muy pronto en el próximo video. Gracias. Thank you. Adiós.